tax on the goods going out. So tea was double taxed, coming in and going out. The East India Company was on the verge of bankruptcy. They had tremendous, powerful support in Parliament. They went to Parliament and said, we're going to go under unless you do something for us. And they said, all right, we'll remove the taxes coming and going on tea. And they did that. And so after the Tea Act of 1773 was passed, the East India Company could bring tea into Britain and transship it to the colonies without paying any duties or taxes, making tea cheaper in the colonies than it had ever been before during the colonial period. It should have been a period of enormous rejoicing, at least for half the population of the colonies, all the females who were addicted to tea. In fact, it was the last great political crisis before independence, because people sniffed this out immediately by granting a monopoly to one British company for all the trade going to the colonies, eliminating the competition by making it cheaper so even the smugglers couldn't compete with them. Parliament was setting a new precedent that if it was successful, if the colonists let them get away with it, they were afraid then Parliament would grant monopolies to other favored British companies who would undercut the colonial markets and put colonial businessmen out of business, and would be a very great threat to liberty in the colonies. So the Tea Act didn't tax tea, it reduced the taxes on tea. It was the creation of a monopoly that concerned the colonists most, a whole new issue that was added to the mix. So this led to widespread protests in all of the colonies, a total boycott on importing any goods from Britain, and of course the famous Boston Tea Party of 1773, where merchants described as Indians went on board a fleet of British tea ships that had just arrived and threw all of the tea in the harbor. Britain then closed the port of Boston in retribution, demanding that the Bostonians pay for the tea, which they refused to do. And so they asked the other colonies for assistance. And that was the first communication between all the colonies. And once that line of communication amongst all the colonies was open, the way to independence was clear. Did someone have a question? No? I need a drink of water, and I was hoping someone was going to ask a question. All right. Another 6 minutes. Maryland's Tea Party. We had our own tea parties. 8 of the colonies had tea parties of one sort or the other. We have the famous one in Chestertown in May of 1774 that probably never happened, but don't tell them over there because they get real touchy about this. They say that residents went on board a brigantine by the name of the Geddes and threw tea over it, celebrated every year on Memorial Day weekend. You can go over there and see them reenact throwing the tea off the Geddes. The problem is that the first time this is ever mentioned is in a newspaper article in 1899. So it probably is just a PR stunt. It probably never happened. There's zero evidence that it did. So anyway, good reason to go over to the Eastern Shore in the spring and enjoy yourself. The Annapolis Tea Party most assuredly did happen. October 19th of 1774. This involved Anthony Stewart again, our the nephew of the merchant in London town that co-owned the Golden Pen, was forced to go back to England in 1770. He had this little boat that he named after his eldest daughter, Peggy. So the Peggy Stewart, he'd had it just on one voyage. This is during the 1770s period where we haven't had an Inspection Act until late 1773. The Maryland economy is really in the dumps. So is the economy generally in the world. And so he found that he simply couldn't profitably run the Peggy Stewart. And so he sent it loaded with goods to England with orders to the captain to sell the boat when he got there. But he put a floor price below which the captain couldn't go and sell him the vessel. The captain got in London, found the economy was so bad that no one would pay the asking price for the Peggy Stewart. No way to communicate back home with Anthony Stewart. So he simply goes to the newspaper, puts an ad that he's going back to Maryland in this brig, the Peggy Stewart, advertising for cargo to go back to the Annapolis area. A number of merchant houses in London consign goods to him, including one to some merchants here in Annapolis by the name of Williams, and it's just a little over a ton of tea. Now he knows it's tea, but he accepts the cargo anyway. He wants to have a profitable voyage back. So the only thing on the entire boat owned or purchased for the interest of Anthony Stewart were 51 indentured servants. All the rest of the cargo was owned by other merchants in the Annapolis area. So they arrive in early October of 1774, and the ship captain goes up to Anthony Stewart and says, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is that we've arrived safely in harbor, and I've got 51 servants on board in your name, and you should get a good price for those. The bad news is that the boat's kind of leaky, and I've got a cargo full of various things, and we really need to get that cargo off before the water starts to damage it. And oh, by the by, there's about a ton of tea in some packets down there, and so you particularly need to protect that from getting wet. So Anthony Stewart knows that he's in a terrible bind. So he goes down to the customs office and said, look, I've got 51 indentured servants on board. I've got to get them off, and there's some cargo I need to remove as well. But I'll leave some of the cargo on board. And the customs official says, no, you know the law. You have to pay the tax on the entire cargo and list the entire cargo. You can't just do it piecemeal. And so he says, well, all right, let's keep this between the two of us. Here's the manifest of what's on board. And he looks down and says, a ton of tea, how about that? And so Anthony Stewart steps off, having paid the tax and probably a substantial bribe to keep his secret safe from the rest of the community. Before he's reached the end of City Dock, everyone in town knows about the ton of tea on board the Peggy Stewart. And he's in real deep trouble. And the crowd start milling about his office and around his house, and they become more and more violent. More people are arriving from distances, from Baltimore and from what today is Howard County, western Anne Arundel County, radical patriots, and demanding that he do something dramatic to make up for trying to smuggle this tea in. He goes down to the Gazette, writes out his side of the story, and has it printed in a broadside saying, I didn't know what was on board, what was I supposed to do? And that didn't satisfy the critics. And the matter is complicated by the fact that his wife is in her child bed, having just given birth to their sixth child, there in the Peggy Stewart house on Hanover Street. His father-in-law comes up from London town, and his concern is his daughter and his daughter's safety. He does not want a mob storming the Peggy Stewart house, and because she's got a little infant, she's still in her child bed. And so he says, do whatever you have to do to placate the crowd. So on the 19th, he has the ship sailed off to Windmill Point, where the Naval Academy is now, and he burns it to the waterline, completely destroying the Peggy Stewart and all of its cargo. So that's the famous Annapolis Tea Party, legitimate, genuine. Chestertown, maybe not so much. Yeah?
I've heard various stories as to whether the indentured servants were taken on.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think sank them. Oh, can you imagine the screaming? No, I'm sure you can. Ooh, wow, that'd make a good movie.
I had read recently that the committee who were negotiating with Stewart had formed a special committee to ensure that only the Stewarts got off the boat before the murder.
Was that right?
Yeah, they were escorted off the boat.
Ah, okay.
How's that right?
Where did you read that?
It's one of my many researches.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah.
It was one of the, if you go and follow all that Peggy Stewart stuff on the internet, you read the letter books that other people.
There actually were a lot of people in the crowd that gathered who were willing to have him just destroy the cargo and not to destroy the ship. But the radicals had taken over. I mean, they just, kind of like today in politics, when it's not the reasonable people whose voice was heard anymore. It was the more radical elements on both sides. All right, it's time for our 10-minute break. No more than 10.
There was, on the Peggy Stewart, there was one piece of merchandise that escaped. It was a bowl.
Yes.
Oh,
which
really?
is